Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast, joined by Sam Teets, EJ Holt, Anthony Russo, and we are going to be breaking down some tight ends in the upcoming draft. But before we do that, Sam, it's been like 7 days since I've seen you. How are you doing?
Well, I had to watch my Steelers lose last night to the Bengals in the most humiliating fashion possible, but it wasn't actually surprising. I knew between the Cleveland game last week and the Bengals game this week, I knew they were losing one of them, and it just happened to be this one, unfortunately. So I've been better, but I'm looking forward to not having to watch Pittsburgh on Sunday.
I was surprised that Aaron Rodgers got the last pass into the end zone.
Yeah.
That was not something that I thought a 41-year-old would be able to do. But
he still got a little bit.
Yeah. So we are going to cover this is a series of 3 podcasts. We had one podcast last week. We have one today, and we have one next Friday. And each of those podcasts is covering a portion of the tight ends that we think are in the draft. This podcast is going to focus on Dae'Quan Wright from Ole Miss, Jaran Kanak from Oklahoma, John Michael Gyllenburg from Wyoming, Michael Trigg from Baylor, Eli Stowers from Vanderbilt, and we're going to finish up with Max Klare from Ohio State. And each of the podcasters is going to have a chance to talk about what their assessment of the player is. We're probably going to have a few conversations on a couple of them. So, EJ, Dae'Quan Wright from Ole Miss, what did you see?
I was impressed. He's a guy that I hadn't watched beforehand prior to this. But yeah, I looking into him, I found out he started at wide receiver 2 games in 2024. So a little bit of background on him. He's a 4-star athlete coming out of high school, played basketball as well, averaged 16-8 as a high school basketball player. He's another track guy, 100-meter dash guy. He ran nothing special, 11-14 100-meter dash, which nothing special, but at his size, that's pretty good. At Ole Miss right now, they use him pretty balanced as far as receiver and blocker. 62 snaps in the slot and 67 as an inline blocker. That's not necessarily on the line of scrimmage as an inline blocker, but he does have reps on they count inline as the H-back and on the line of scrimmage. So pretty balanced in his usage, and it works well for him too, because he's a solid blocker, I thought. Right now on the season, 16 catches on 23 targets for 359 yards. He's averaging 22 yards a catch. But that's a little misleading. But we'll get into that later. I watched him versus LSU, and I watched him versus Washington State. But first thing, I thought he's a good blocker. He's a willing blocker. He has the size to be a solid blocker at the next level, whether that's in line or on the move. But I think he has that ability. If you need him, like if you want to go 12 personnel and you want to run the ball with him, and you want to run the ball to his side, I think he can be serviceable as a blocker. Good hands, good strong catch radius. I think everybody saw the catch against LSU. The pass he was running the backside dig against cover 3. The pass was way behind him, but he just reached all the way back and grabbed it with one hand. So he's got solid hands. A lot as far as a route runner, I think his hips are a little stiff. He doesn't create much separation on his own. I think he's more of a zone route runner. Like most of his plays, seam routes versus zone, and that split zone, little pop pass versus zone and all that. I think he's more of a zone route runner. I don't think he's going to be able to separate on his own against man coverage at the next level, which is fine. A lot of tight ends can't do that, but it's a way that you can use him, because he does have some type of receiving ability. I like the power after the catch. He's really a load to bring down after the catch. So and at 255, he has the frame that can take those type of hits. So he's a guy. He's serviceable as a tight end, I would say. I have a draftable grade on him, but I think he just there's some limited upside as a receiver, but as a two-way type of tight end, as a blocker and receiver, I think he has a role there on an NFL team.
Sam, how about you on Dae'Quan Wright from Ole Miss?
Yeah, I came in a lot lower on his blocking capability than EJ did, actually. I thought he was, at times, a liability as an inline blocker. There are times where I thought he was just getting blown back. He really struggled, in my opinion, to sustain blocks, where he'll get a body on a body initially, but then he has no ability to actually clamp down and finish the block. He kind of just falls off it pretty quickly. You saw this a couple times against LSU, where he had made the initial block, but then he ends up getting the defender gets off of it and ends up making the tackle. So there's a lot of yards just kind of lost in those situations where I don't view Wright as a player who has the level of aggression and power to consistently generate movement for you in the run game, even against like linebacker caliber players. I just don't see that from him. I have a 6th-round grade on him right now. I think he's an athletic player. I think there are some traits to work with there in terms of the mid-route acceleration to open some passing windows and kind of create those throwing lanes. I think there's a little bit to his release package. He's a smooth-moving player with good speed off the line. You see some really nice cuts at the top of the stem. But overall, taking the full picture of this player, I don't feel as comfortable with him in line at an H-back role as EJ does. I just don't see the polished ability to maintain blocks the way I want to for a guy who's going to see reps there. And that limits him to a very small role for me. It's hard because there are like sparks and there are moments here where I like this player, but I think EJ kind of hit this. Some of the production from him, it's kind of false, kind of fake. There's like a rep, I think it's the LSU game, where Wright has a catch all alone in space. It's completely wide open, not uncontested. It's a huge gain for him there. In the Arkansas game, they actually seem a play where they have receivers clearing everything out. He's open underneath on a slant. He takes 64 yards. He's good after the catch. He's got some ability to test angles after the catch, but also he's completely uncontested in the moment for the catch itself. So he's not a player like you said. I'm not a player I've really envisioned beating man coverage at a high level. He's a good athlete, but not the next level caliber of athlete to really take this game and be a guy you can say, okay, we can put him on the field just as a receiver and he'll be able to provide value for us. And because I don't love him that much in the run game, I think he's looking at like a late day 3 type player.
Anthony, Dae'Quan Wright.
Yeah, I'll just say first on the blocking kind of point that we're making here, I'm kind of willing to give him the benefit of the doubt a little bit. No, I don't think he's the most impressive blocker you're going to see at the tight end spot, but I don't think because he hasn't really been like the starting tight end. He's sort of just been this backup rotational kind of guy for the time. He's been at Ole Miss this is his 2nd year there. Before that, he was at Virginia Tech. So this is really like his first go as like the tight end 1 since Luke Haas has been hurt. I'm willing to believe that he can get better as a blocker, both as the season goes on and then once he gets to the NFL, because he does have the body for it. Both EJ and Sam hit on it. Good athlete. I think he moves pretty well for his size. He actually leads all tight ends in yards after the catch. But it really is just because he is so big and physical. He can, out-muscle guys, run over guys. He's able to do that pretty well. Good hands. EJ talked about that crazy catch he made against LSU, which was very impressive. I think he is. I also have him as like a day 3 guy right now. I know Max is going to be a little higher on him. But I see the vision with him. I can see him becoming a top 100 player by the end of the season. I will say too, I don't think this is usually more for the wide receivers at Ole Miss, but there is always this, discussion about the Lane Kiffin offense and, how much of the receptions and touches that playmakers get. Is it scheme related? He certainly benefits from that, but I don't think that's like something you would have to worry about with him necessarily. I think he checks some boxes, but yeah, I don't know how high the ceiling is necessarily, but the fact he can both block and receive at some level probably means he can get on a roster and spend some time in the league.
Max, what do you have on Dae'Quan Wright from Ole Miss?
Yeah, he's a strong contender for tight end 1 right now. Like, people aren't really noticing this, but this guy has been basically the best tight end in the country. He's not necessarily an elite separator against man coverage. I mean, if you'll notice, Tucker Kraft is actually like an actively bad one, and he's one of the best tight ends in the league. Wright is super explosive after the catch. I think he's probably going to run in the low 4.6s. I don't think people are going to be expecting that, but he's going to be one of the guys that does that. He's got minimum high 32-inch arms, and that's conservative, so he's got great length. He's got well above average mass, and he still moves well with it. He's a great linear athlete. He's explosive. He does have great hands. He's got a little bit of foot quickness too, which I think is really, really nice for an NFL underneath menu, like stuff like stick routes, maybe like a wide choice on a linebacker. I think he could get up to, and that could be really helpful, which is stuff in the drop back menu that even Tucker Kraft isn't going to do. As a play action threat, again, the strides, the explosion, and just the smoothness, I think, is really going to be great for getting behind linebackers, getting in the seam, getting into the flats, and kind of being a threat off the run game. And I think the blocking is excellent, especially for somebody who plays in a system that doesn't really develop inline blocking very well, because they've always kind of used, until the last couple of years when they got Caden Prescorn, these types of systems tend to use off-ball blockers. And so the technique doesn't really get drilled and developed that well. And Prescorn wasn't good in line, despite being very big. Wright is excellent. He was against LSU. There were a couple reps where he just folded LSU defensive end Jack Pyburn, who is probably the best run defending edge in the country, who's 265, who is going to play in the NFL entirely because of how he is as a run defender, because he's a literal zero as a pass rusher. This guy is going to test better than everybody thinks. His production profile, especially with the system that he's in, is off the charts. The yak ability is crazy. The explosion and acceleration is crazy. And just as a guy that detaches from the line, stretches that second level, and makes chunk plays and play action, is going to be super useful in the NFL. And I don't think Tucker Kraft is not my comparison, but I think as far as a usage perspective, that's going to be something he can do. But I think he could do, while he won't be the best yak tight end in the league like Tucker Kraft is with George Kittle, he's going to be, I think, a little bit more as a drop back threat. So this is a guy that is where he's at right now is an excellent player and has a lot of untapped upside due to the fact that he is also pretty new to the position as a converted receiver and is pretty young. So like this is a strong contender for tight end 1, depending on how he and a couple other guys test.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on Dae'Quan Wright? Okay, so Sam, we were talking about Jaran Kanak from Oklahoma pre-show. Do you want to let everybody know what you think of the linebacker that is converted to tight end?
Yeah, so we'll put tight end in quotes here because it's not a traditional tight end role, really. Obviously, you're not going to provide a full spectrum of what he can do at that size. Primarily a guy who sees a lot of action in the slot. I know they give him roles in line, but I think next level we're talking about a player who's going to be primarily a special teamer throughout probably the majority of his career, at least the start of his career. After that point, you'll see him primarily in the slot, maybe a little bit of fullback role type stuff. I think he tracks the ball well. He's got some decent explosiveness off the line with a good burst to get behind second-level zones quickly and speed to generate tough yards after the catch. He's willing to work over the middle of the field and take hits. So he's got some toughness to him. As a former linebacker, you kind of expect that. He will relocate on extended dropbacks and try to find new holes in zone coverage. I don't think he's twitchy, but I think he's quick. That's the best way to put it. So you see some of that in the short area situations against defenders where he shows some quickness. Obviously, though, it doesn't really give you much of anything as a blocker. He's just so undersized for that kind of role. And he's got questionable arm length. I've seen him whiff and slip off of block attempts. There was a play against TJ Guy in the Michigan game where the guy just blows him up and knocks him off the line of scrimmage pretty easily. He just doesn't have the size for that. He gets rerouted by contact pretty early in routes. Again, it's more of a mass type thing, and I imagine the release package is a little underdeveloped at this point, which contributes to him taking on too much contact early in routes. Right now, you're looking at like a late day 3 kind of player, maybe even a UDFA type, who will kind of see most of his career action, I imagine, on special teams. And if he develops in the NFL, maybe he sees more action in offense. But I don't think you're seeing a player who's going to see offensive snaps as a rookie.
Anthony, what do you have on Jaran Kanak from Oklahoma?
Yeah, so I'll give a little background because I think it kind of helps tell the story of where he's going to wind up. So in high school, Jaran Kanak played both quarterback and linebacker. He had over 1,600 rushing yards in his senior season in high school. He also ran a 10.37 100-meter dash, which is a very impressive time, especially for someone that's 230 pounds. I think he's a very, very good athlete, just in the most broad sense of the word athlete. You see it when he has the ball in his hands. He's fast and explosive and can outrun guys. I think he has a place on a football field, whether that is necessarily at the tight end spot. I probably would say no. Sam talked about it. He is not any kind of. He is a liability as a blocker, I think, and it's just the fact he's 6'2", 233 pounds. He just doesn't. He doesn't have room to grow. He doesn't have room to fill out any more of his frame. I don't see him being any kind of elite receiver. And keep in mind too, he's only played tight end for, a year and a half, whatever. So you're talking about a guy who is still learning the position while also dealing with physical limitations. It just doesn't feel like he's ever really going to develop into a true starting tight end 1 or 2 at any point. Maybe he gets on the field in 13 personnel looks. But other than that, I think special teams is probably the route best served for him to have an NFL career.
Okay. Max, what do you have on Jaran Kanak?
All right, before I say that, what do you guys think I think about it?
Like a psychological question.
Oh, well, so Max, I'm not sure what you think, but ironically, after listening to Sam and Anthony, you know who I'm having flashbacks to? Does Jim Jensen are any of you close to my age where you know who that player is?
I know who he is. I don't know anything about him, though.
So he was like a tight end emergency quarterback for the Miami Dolphins in the early part of Dan Marino's career, where he was playing special teams and doing some other things, but he was like a third string quarterback that also played tight end. But Max, what do you have on Kanak?
To answer your question, Max, I don't think you're going to love him, but you could prove me wrong here.
Well, it's sort of a complicated answer. So no, I don't think anybody's really gonna be that satisfied. I think I might really love him, but not as a tight end.
Okay.
Not as a tight end. Obviously not. God, no, not even close. But again, think about it. They switched him from linebacker to tight end. They don't really know. It's just, it's all right. We don't really know what he is offensively yet. It's not like he's played this his whole career where it's something that he's kind of pigeonholed into. Now, people I've talked to who are familiar with Oklahoma, they think this guy is a freak show athlete. And I bet he is. He certainly was at high school. He's going to test insane. So when I watch him, and like you said, he's not twitchy, but he's quick. But he like really quick. He's precise. He's got such a that short area, choppy but controlled short stride footwork, and agility. It's just so good. Now, what if you took this guy and you said, all right, you look at his frame, he's 6'2", 230, and you cut 15 pounds off of that. This is the guy who's probably right now running in the high 4.5s to low 4.6s. And so you get him at 6'2", 215, and you put him in a power slot role like a Jack Besh. That's what, like, they're not going to – they don't really need inline blocking that much because they don't – like, their run game is it's in those veer and shoot systems and air raids and the air raid too. It's so built to run out of 4 wide that you can survive without it, and they use that guy a lot as a move blocker. We'll talk about that when we get to Trigg as well. But, like, so they don't need it, and so it's nice to have him working on linebackers and safeties because it's not fair. But, like, this guy at 215, and LSU did the same thing with Jack Besh. They tried to turn him into a tight end, and they got him up to, like, 225, 230, and he was kind of okay, but he was just like a receiver. So they get him down to, like, 215. He's really good. Gets hurt a little bit, goes to TCU, blows up. I really think you could get the same kind of thing out of this guy. And it's just they don't really know what to do with him as an offensive player yet because this is his first year there. So there's like the fact that he's already running routes like this and is quick like this and all that in a very athletic profile. He's just a little too heavy. But not as a tight end. If you really are going to keep him at this weight and you use him like the Browns use Harold Fannin or like the 49ers use Kyle Juszczyk, that could be a really exciting player, even if he doesn't play a ton of snaps. That could be a really useful piece, but like you could really get a sick power slot out of that guy, potentially.
Yeah, Harold Van was the name I threw out in the pre-show when we were talking about him. So I think that's kind of like that's the rule if you're going to keep him at tight end.
Right.
Yep.
He's a better athlete, though, I think.
100%.
So is that do we feel that Kanak is a better athlete than Fannin? Is that pretty much
I would
not even close.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Much more natural mover, much less polished at the role, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Also at a higher level of competition, right?
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So EJ, what did you think of Jaran Kanak?
Yeah, he's undersized and he's raw. If he's going to transition to the league, it's going to take an offensive coordinator that has the creativity to use him in the right way. Because say he stays at that size, play him in the slot, I wouldn't have a problem with them taking handoffs, playing some running back.
Mm-hmm.
But because you want, where is he special at? He's special. His athleticism. He's good with the ball in his hands. So quickest way to get the ball in his hands, work the short game with him coming out of the slot, or just directly hand the ball to him. But the thing with him is wherever he plays, he's going to have to get more polished in his route running because at some point he's going to be some type of receiver. So he's going to have to get more polished in his route running, his hand usage. The main thing I saw against man coverage, against man off man specifically, defensive backs, they try to create collisions. That gives them a reason to touch the receiver beyond the 5 yards. And he has trouble getting off of those collisions. You got to use your hands to get off those collisions. You got to, make your way around that defensive back. He gets stuck there. He just doesn't know how to use his hands yet to get off of that defensive back. But that just comes with reps. That's just an experience. So this is a guy that you're going to look at him as an offensive weapon. See what he really takes to, whether it's running the ball, whether it's receiving. See what he takes to, and then use him that way. He's not going to be a full-time anything. So he's the guy that he's going to have to embrace that jack of all trades role on an offense. And it may not happen overnight. This may happen year 2, year 3, year 4, or something like that. But he definitely, one thing we do know about him, he has a baseline of an athlete. So, I mean, he can survive on as a special teams, as a gunner on special teams or something like that, just to get him into the league, just to get him onto somebody's 53 roster. And then from there, he's going to have to develop himself into an offensive weapon, just do a little bit of everything. Whatever the coaches ask you to do, he's got to do it, because he's a guy that I don't think he's going to have a home on offense. He's just going to just be a guy that you put as a chess piece more than likely, because like the size is a bit of an outlier, but there's a path for him to the NFL, but it's just going to be a more of a different path than traditional.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on Jaran Kanak?
Louisville's about to go up 14-0 on Miami, by the way.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, Chris Bell turned on the Jets.
Mm-hmm.
So, Anthony, John Michael Gyllenburg from Wyoming. What do you have?
Yeah, well, first of all, I don't know if it's Gyllenburg or Gyllenburg. I feel like I've heard both, so somebody want to make me smarter on that, by all means. But anyway, so it's tough evaluating him because he really hasn't been on the field this year. He has been hurt for the past few weeks. I did read that they are hopeful he can go tomorrow. So potentially he can play tomorrow and kind of get his season back on track here. But going off of really what I had over the summer, this is sort of like your classic Y tight end. Good combination of size and athleticism. I think he is a really good route runner. He's able to, get outside hashes and make good catches along the sideline, but he can also work the middle of the field. He does a good job at finding soft spots in coverage. Also using his big frame to make catches, to be able to sort of box out defenders and win those contested catches. He does a really good job of that. I also think he moves, for a guy who is 250 pounds, I think he moves pretty well after the catch. For me, I was pretty disappointed at how inconsistent his blocking was for a guy that is his size. There are reps that he wins pretty well, and then there are other reps where I felt just looked kind of not athletic enough to be able to sustain blocks. So I was, a little underwhelmed in that regard. I think the big question, really it's health at this point. I just said hasn't played several games this year. He also had an ankle injury that sidelined him previously. So you kind of have to, take that into consideration. I also just kind of want him to be a little more just like aggressive as a pass catcher, again, for somebody who is as big and strong as I think he is. I wish he would just kind of fight for the ball a little more sometimes. If he gets on the field and can finish out the season, and the other problem too is Wyoming's offense is in no way conducive to being productive.
It's terrible. It's horrendous.
It's not. Yeah, that's not his fault. That it's if you thought Colston Loveland at Michigan was tough to deal with, the whole other level at Wyoming. So you certainly have to give him that caveat. But again, if he can get on the field and at least get a chance to make some catches and do it, I think he can. Again, he just fits the profile so well for what the NFL wants in a tight end that's able to line up both in the slot and in line. So I think it's inevitable he gets drafted again, unless there's a serious medical issue. Right now, he's kind of in that early to mid day 3 range. But another guy that, again, if he plays well, could certainly rise up for me. I know there was a lot of top 100 talk during the summer. I wasn't quite there, but I could see myself getting there with him.
Max, how about you on J Mike, which is how all the announcers refer to him?
That's so funny.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I just keep calling him Jake Gyllenhaal. But like, yeah, I mean, it's weird because I'm pretty sure he's hurt right now, which is tough. This year's been just impossible to evaluate. You know, like you said, Anthony, because of this offense, it's just like it's unevaluatable. I don't think he's actually at his list weight. I think he's like 235, 240, which is too thin at his height. Which is probably why, not probably, it's definitely why he struggles a ton as a blocker. He's just not strong. So the raw tools are awesome. He's fluid, he's super explosive, and he's fast. And you know, like you talked about, Anthony, he does some actual nice stuff as a receiver, like we've seen it. It's just like, obviously the situation. I think he needs to get out of there and transfer. And I don't know if he has more eligibility. I really hope he does to come back, transfer, because I definitely think he could get serious looks in the Power 5 because people do love this guy. And I would really love to see that in an offense that's more conducive to this. But I do think he needs to put on 10 to 15 pounds and get better as a blocker and sort of refine even a little bit as a receiver, because I think his game is really always going to be that, you know, that explosive threat in space. And I think he's going to have to get to a point where he can block serviceably in line at the NFL level, which is a huge leap from where he's at now. So I think he needs more time. I think he needs more development. I think he needs more physical development. And I think he needs to get into a system that is going to both develop him as a receiver and get him the ball when he does get better. So it's, to me, I'm almost incomplete on him. He feels like evaluating a guy that's like almost his actual second year in college, but was like a 5-star coming out. It feels very incomplete to me.
EJ, where are you on J Mike?
Yeah, I'm like Max. I gave him an incomplete grade. It's just not enough it's not enough film to evaluate what he is right now. Pretty much just only on this season, he's got 49 snaps in line, only 17 in the slot. Another reason why I didn't spend a whole lot of time on this guy. I don't like that Wyoming offensive environment.
Oh, gross.
Yeah. I just don't. I don't like, But I mean, looking back at his 2024 film, you see a guy that he's got the speed to rip the seam routes. He can get real separation on the seam routes versus zone coverage. You see a guy that's willing and able to run after the catch. He can break some tackles. He runs hard, but it's just that he's in a rough situation right now, and the fact that he's hurt, we haven't really seen what the 2025 version of Gyllenburg is right now. So he's more of an incomplete grade for me. So I think he's a guy, if he comes back, we can circle back around when draft season comes around. But right now it's not enough film to see exactly what he is.
Sam, where are you on J Mike?
Well, he's not coming back to school. He's a redshirt senior. So
Oh,
that's
no.
Which is
No, come on. Ask the NCAA. They'll give it to you.
Diego Pavia is on like year 7. Let him.
Yeah, petition the NCAA. But I was gonna say, he only played like 3 games in high school because he tore his he had an LCL tear in his 4th career high school game, which was his senior season, and the pandemic hit the same time, so he just never played in high school essentially. Going to college, which is why he's such a raw player technically. The injuries are getting to be a little concerning for me at this point because it's now like 2nd consecutive year. Basically, the only 2 years you've been asked to do high volume stuff, you've been banged up. I've evaluated him based on his 2023 and 2024 tape, so I do have like a general trajectory for him. The reason he came back to Wyoming, by the way, is because they were kind of telling him they were going to build like the plane out of him. Essentially, they were going to get him like be the center of the offense. And if you watch week 1, you know like that wasn't what they tried to do at all. So immediately just was a complete and utter crapshoot. But yeah, I think the acceleration and burst after the catch are really insane. Like you go back to 2023, I think it was the Hawaii game where he has like this short completion. I forget if it was a screen or not, but then he goes 89 yards. And like it's Hawaii, like I get it. But if you go back and actually watch the play itself and evaluate the traits in that moment, you're like that's something special. You don't see a guy like that move that way very often. I think he's developed to have a little bit more looseness in his build. Like I thought he was a little bit stiff originally. He seems to be a little bit looser now in his route running. be able to stick at the hips, make some nice cuts off his vertical planes, really snap that stem off. I think you're seeing more manipulation of leverage now with defenders and how he sets up his stem. He's able to cross over the safeties, use more fakes than used previously. So I think there's been good development as a route runner, which I'm really pleased to see. I think that's a bit of a good showing for upward trajectory in the future. I think he's actually regressed a little bit as a blocker over time. Like, I think back in 2023, I think they played Texas, and he had some decent enough blocks in that game to get by. I was like, okay, there's something in that, and then he hasn't shown anything like that since then. But looking at where he's at right now, I think early day 3 is where I have a grade on him for at this point. I was hoping more day 3 or hoping more round 3 in the summer, but hasn't really seen any development to really justify that at this point. And I've moved a lot of names up above him from other positions in this class. Really like the player. I really want him to do well. I just think there's a lot he's got to work against right now, in particular his own team. But yeah, the combination of burst, fluidity, size, a really good mismatch creator who can generate some big plays for you, both in these shorter scheme touches and also more downfield now than previously. I do wish he was more aggressive and natural at the catch point. There are times where he's going up with the DB and it just doesn't look right. He's just not enough ball dominance in the air. So I think that's an area I would really love to see him improve on going forward. But I'm hopeful some team will take him and kind of figure it out because, man, there's something special here, and it just feels like he ended up in the absolute wrong spot to develop all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and Max, Michael Trigg from Baylor. What do you have?
Wait, no, Max is very passionate about this one. I remember there was a whole discussion about this in the chat at one point.
Yeah, I mean, it's really fun right now, but the thing I just released for Remember the Tight Ends this morning. I did a mid-season Mackey Award. I did my top 5. He was 3rd. He's awesome, but he was 3rd. It's the thing I kept thinking, which sucks watching him, is that he just feels like current Kyle Pitts, but minus 2 inches, minus 15 pounds, minus 10 pounds, playing college football and dunking on a bunch of Big 12 car dealers. It's so fun right now because he's fluid, he's explosive and everything. He's just first of all, he's thin, and I really don't think there's more to put on the frame without sacrificing athleticism, especially given his age. And yeah, it's just and he also plays in a Jake Spavital neo air raid offense, which is again, the blocking role there is you just skip the true Y. You go your 5 offensive linemen and you're essentially your fullback role to your move blocker role, and they're so comfortable running at a 4 open anyway that they don't really need that inline guy all the time. When they do, it's just he'll either be on the backside of something, maybe help on a double, maybe split. Yeah, he can't block in line now. He's okay as a move blocker and inserter and everything, but if you look at Kyle Pitts right now, ironically, he's gotten to a level where he's functional. He's not good, but he's functional as an inline blocker. And the rub is that he's just not a good enough receiver because he's lost a little bit of athleticism from a couple injuries, and that was just it. And this is it. But if you put him in the Big 12 right now with that 6'4", 240 frame, if you took that size off him to get him to this frame, I mean, I can't imagine how it would look different. And it's just the NFL is such a leap, and especially, and it's such a high bar to clear as that pure move guy that yeah, it's just he'll be on rosters and everything, but you kind of got to compare him to if you want him to pan out, he's got to be like Mike Gesicki, and Mike Gesicki was from a testing perspective, was a freak show of freak shows, and was an elite receiver in college. And he's just not that guy. But he feels like the tight end equivalent of Colin Klein when he was at Texas or Kansas State. It's oh, this guy rocks, but it's just, this is it. He's like tight end Diego Pavia.
So EJ, where are you on Michael Trigg, the tight end from Baylor?
Yeah, he is. I mean, you know, when people are selling stuff like online, they say you selling it as is. That's what he is. He's as is. I mean, everything you see is exactly what he is. He's a receiver. That's where his strong suit is. That's what he's going to have to be at the next level. And he's a pretty damn good receiver at that, actually. As far as the blocking goes, what you want is like Max said, he's not an inline blocker. You want him as a Y insert type of guy, move blocker, angle blocker, or double team blocker, or something like that. You don't want him. He'll give you an honest effort, but it's just that the play strength is not there. Like the mass is not there. But what he does do, from as far as I've seen these tight ends now, I think he might be the best route runner of these tight ends that we've gone over. He runs routes like a wide receiver. He has some nuance. He has some wiggle at the top of the route stem. He's one of these guys that creates separation naturally, albeit from other linebackers and other safeties. But that's where what he's going to be going up against. But he's more of a receiver than anything else. And that's, if you're drafting him, that's what you need him to be. He makes no bones about being anything else. He's a guy, 137 snaps in the slot, only 59 as an inline player. So they know what he is. If you want a receiving tight end, this is your guy. If you want him to be a complete player, you want him to be your George Kittle, your every down tight end or something like that, that's going to be risky. But as far as he has his clear strong suit, and that's in the receiving game. How far that takes him, we'll see. But the best route for him is to get to the point where he's a good enough blocker where you can keep an offense honest. That means that you don't want him to be typecast. You don't want the defense to see him walking on the field like, oh, they're going to throw the ball because this guy can't block. You want to be able to at least give the threat that you can be a functional blocker at the next level. But because the receiving game is there. I think he'll be a solid receiver at the next level. It's just that you got to iron out the rest of the aspects of your game so that can't be just your one trait. That can't be it. You have to add to that. So, but he's a guy that he is what he is. He's a receiving threat. That's what he needs to lean into. But it's a solid baseline to start with though.
And EJ, are you day 2 or day 3 on Michael Trigg?
Probably day 3, I would say. Given this body of work now, given how he tests, he could creep up into that day 2 range, probably like the late 3rd round if somebody falls in love with him. But I'm leaning towards early day 3 for right now.
Okay. Sam, what do you have on Michael Trigg?
Yeah, I got a 4th on him right now. Predictively, I probably would guess we'd go lower than that. He's got some baggage coming from his past 2 stops going to Baylor, so that's going to impact, from what I've heard, going to impact how he's evaluated. There's always a chance some team just takes him at like pick 95 and roll with it. It only takes one team to fall in love with you, but there is some legitimate stuff that might drag his evaluation down a little bit in the process. But Trigg is twitchy. He's loose at the top of the stem. You see, he's one of these guys who can actually get a defender to open their hips and break the opposite direction. Really quick, natural footwork. He's just an athlete. We talk about some of these guys who are like athletic, but haven't really kind of grown into themselves yet. He's totally comfortable with everything he can do out there. He's just kind of balling a little bit, and that's fun to watch. Obviously, we see that like games like the Kansas State one, the Auburn one is pretty decent. Like, he's got reps like this where he's just dominant. But I agree. I tend to think there's a lot of stuff that maybe won't translate the way you're hoping to. Probably the best way for him to succeed is you throw him out there in a slot and you just hope he's too fast for linebackers and too big for DBs, really, and just kind of go with that. I will say one thing that I've noticed throughout the course of his tape that hasn't been brought up a ton is I think he's more inconsistent at the catch point than people mention. Yeah, he can play above the rim and have these epic moments, but also he's got a couple of drops or bobble passes or moments where he just like misplays his footwork on the sideline. There's a couple like oddities there where that don't really line up, where he's not as consistent as you want him to be at the catch point, especially considering some of the high end stuff he's capable of doing. So I think that pops up a little bit. To his credit, though, he's improved his toughness over the middle of the field this year. I think like last year, in years prior, this guy wasn't really breaking into tackles. This guy wasn't really showcasing the ability to play through contact over the middle of the field after at the catch point. And I think we saw a lot more of that, and we saw almost immediately in the Auburn game from the start of the year. He's done more of that through the course of the season. So there's a little bit more toughness to his game this year than I think we saw in previous years. But yeah, I think there's still obviously some limitations to how you can deploy him, how you can get on the roster, and there's obviously some information in there that none of us have access to that might impact his draft grade. But right now I have a fourth rounder on him because at that point, fourth round, 50-50 shot the guy's going to be on the roster in 2 or 3 years anyways. So I might as well go ahead and take a guy you believe in athletically having a floor to work with there.
Anthony, what do you have on Michael Trigg?
Yeah, so I think I'm a little higher on him than you guys are, and I think it's mainly just because I am bought in on the athlete that he is, and I love I think one thing that doesn't get talked about him enough is his verified measurables are he has 34.5-inch arms and 10 6/8 inch hands, which is wild. So that's certainly something. Everything about him is like a player that's 20 pounds lighter than what he's listed as. And that's both good and bad, in terms of his, movement, athleticism, ability to win in space, his ability to be a move blocker. He does that well, but then also comes with the physical limitations just as a straight up inline blocker. He does not handle, contested coverage and physicality as well as you would hope for somebody who is 240 pounds. I think also he is just someone who, wasn't really a big part of the offense for the time that he's there. And obviously we've seen him come out and be more of that, go-to guy this year. But you kind of, it does feel like it took a little longer than it probably should have. I love the athlete and the hands and just the all around receiving ability that he has. And I do think that will get him play in the NFL. But if he doesn't develop a sort of just he doesn't have to be a great blocker. He just needs to be some kind of baseline, that he can be on the field for run plays and not be a liability. So I'm optimistic he can do that, but it is problematic that he hasn't done that and isn't doing that. And Baylor, you could tell Baylor knows that he's not a good blocker. The way there's so many snaps where he's not even lined up on the line of scrimmage. He's already lining up off the line of scrimmage, and you can just, he's just going to run to be a pull blocker or again, block in space or whatever. They are not even putting him next to the right tackle on the line of scrimmage or the left tackle or whatever side he's on. But yeah, I like the physicality or the physical upside that he could have. It's just not being put into practice as much as you would hope for. I would be willing to throw a top 100 pick on him, but that's probably where that's going to cap for me.
Okay.
By the way, going to be a 24-year-old rookie. 24-year-old rookie coming out of the Big 12 from a Baylor offense is not where I want to be drafting in the top 100.
Yeah, it's certainly not a tight end. Maybe a receiver.
And EJ's cat is begging to make an appearance, it sounds like.
Yeah, trying to, but I'm not letting him on the show.
So, Sam, you want to kick off Eli Stowers from Vanderbilt?
Yeah, I can take the first crack at him. So, Eli Stowers, I think there was a lot more general media love for him in the summer. I'm not one who's really bought in on him. I know he's got kind of the unique background to get to where he's at right now, in terms of being a quarterback for most of his life and then eventually becoming a tight end. But looking at what he offers you, I know he's put on some weight, but like, man, I just don't see him at like blocking at all. Really, I think there's like just not a lot he does at a high enough level for me to really consider this guy to be like a top 100 kind of player. To me, he's more like this 5th round type dude. Because I think like even like the 4th rounders you talked about so far, the guys I've talked about as 4th rounders, I think they have more physical upside to develop into more well-rounded players. To me, Stowers is more of the guy who just will never be able to put on the mass to be a 250-pound player and doesn't have the ability to win, and like win with athleticism the way Michael Trigg can. Like, he cannot but go one-on-one with some guy in space and dominate kind of that way. So to me, I'm worried about all that. I don't think he really separates the pull-aways from defensive backs, and the straight line speed is as high as some of the guys we've talked about so far. I think he's been a huge beneficiary of scheme touches across the course of his career at Vanderbilt. Maybe not as much this year, but definitely last year I thought it was a big deal for him. The speed is like it's good, but it's not elite. So like, yeah, again, the athletic traits are solid for him, but I don't think they rise to the levels of the player of the level that you would need them to be for a player with this build and this profile to be considered a guy who can come in the NFL and give you early snaps in his career. He's very bothered by contact at the catch point and early in the route. I think at times he's almost too passive at the top of the route stem in terms of like kind of initiating contact and also in terms of being able to snap it off and be more aggressive with how he's defining his routes. So I think there's a lot of physical concerns here. I do think he like decelerates well. I think there's ability to create some separation at the top of the stem. I've seen some contact balance, the ability to kind of slip through arm tackles, survive some blows to the thigh, and kind of keep going. He does like fight for extra yards. He's a very smooth route runner, natural hand catcher. He's got some decent sink in his hip. The vertical speed is, again, not great, but it will command attention from the defense down the seam. He's got a spin move after the catch. And he's able to kind of tempo his route and slow down to extend throwing windows against zone coverage, so kind of linger in those holes and then kind of move on. He's got dead legs and Euro steps for extra yards at the catch. Decent vertical jumping from the looks of it. I'm just guessing entirely based off tape. Natural hands as well. So there's some stuff to work with here. I just don't see a guy who's like I don't see a tight end. I don't see a complete NFL caliber tight end. I think this player is going to be like a midday 3 kind of guy.
EJ, where are you and Eli Stowers from Vanderbilt?
Yeah, he's a guy, I think, like the draft Illuminati just fell in love with the idea of what Eli Stowers is. Like they build him as like this super freak athlete at tight end, used to play quarterback. I mean, he's got the background, 4-star former QB coming out of high school, is a state champ high jump, led the all SEC in 24, led his team in receiving and all that. So, I mean, like all the paperwork is there, the resume is there. But when you put on the film, it's like, I mean, first the good. I mean, you see a fluid athlete. He is a fluid guy. He has a solid speed to threaten vertically, to run away from dudes. But it's just that where's the wow NFL trait? That's what I'm looking for. And you don't see a lot of that with him. It's not blocking. It's not really receiving. So like, what's the wow NFL trait? With him, I do think he's best at, you like him most with the ball in his hands. So you want to run some quick game. You want to run those screens and all that. I think he's best with the ball in his hands. And he can against zone coverage. He can sit down in some zones. Tempo, like Sam said, tempo his routes down to stay in the open space, to stay in the hole in the zone. I think he's, it's just nothing really wild. No area of his game you point to where you say, okay, he's going to dominate over other defenders. The other defenders are going to have a problem dealing with this. I didn't see that from his game. Can he still be a solid player? Yes. Is he still a draftable player? I would say yes, but it's just that I don't think he's that high level type of freak athlete that he was painted as. But and the thing, I think he's going to have to get a little bit stronger for the next level. I think he's you want to see a more physical type of player. You want to see him if he's going to be a starting tight end or play a whole lot of snaps as tight end at the next level. I think I want to see him get a little bit stronger, add to that play strength, and also add to that run after the catch ability, because that's really what's going to set him apart. If he is to make that move. But overall, I think I would say he's a solid player for this class. Not not that high caliber of a player.
Okay. And then I need to go figure out where the draft Illuminati is. I need to see if they can come on a podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, they they're everywhere. They're everywhere, Jim. That's the draft Illuminati. They're everywhere. They're listening right now.
Well, and if this is where they're getting their knowledge, they're getting it from 4 really good people here. Max, what do you have on Eli Stowers?
Yeah, super hard pass. Like, come on. Like, it last year when he was playing at like 225, 230, he's doing some fun things. Like, he's a decent athlete. He'll never be an actual route runner in space at the NFL level on defensive backs, like NFL defensive backs. That's crazy. But he's a pretty good athlete, and he plays in this super mega fake offense that's just like, it's like borderline, like it's not the triple, but it's sort of like the Jamie Chadwell stuff in a lot of ways, where like so much of that. Now granted, that produced Isaiah Likely, so that undercuts my point. But at the same time, like, Isaiah Likely's a great athlete and is still not that great of an NFL tight end. I think he's pretty overrated, but like, it's just no. I mean, he'll never block in line at the NFL level. He's put on a little bit of weight to get up to like 235, 240, and it looks like it sapped a little bit of athleticism and quickness. And the fact of the matter is, he needs to put on like another 15 pounds and get legitimately stronger if he wants to be an actual tight end, and that'll just cook him. No, it's just, I don't know. I mean, maybe you could kind of use him as like a Taysom Hill type gadget and special teamer in a sub role, but it's like 10 snaps a game. I mean, Taysom Hill like should never have played more than like, the 10 snaps a game a guy like that should play. But I don't know. He'll have to be a freak athlete for that. And I don't know. I just don't really see like anything more than a gadget player here. Although, I mean, maybe his only chance to be more is if he like does the same thing I want Kanak to do and slim down and try to become a wide receiver. But I don't think it'll happen for him the way it could for Kanak. So, I mean, like, yeah, I think he's a special teamer and potentially a little bit of a gadget. Like, I think he's a good enough athlete that he'll be on rosters, but I don't know. Like, he feels like he should be an off-ball linebacker, just like from an athletic point of view. And it's just weird.
I don't see like that short area agility and quickness I see with Kanak. I just don't see that with Stowers. Right?
Yeah, it's not the same. Yeah, totally. Yeah. That's a good point.
Anthony, what do you have in Eli Stowers?
All right. So look, I'm gonna be up front.
Defend yourself.
I'm not gonna. Well, I'm gonna.
No, you got to stand on business.
No, I'm not gonna stand on business. So I had in summer scouting, Eli Stowers was my tight end 1. Now that also was just because I really didn't think much of this tight end class, and I kind of still don't. But I'm getting off the Stowers train here. I do think so. Coming into the year, I believed that he had this quickness and this fluidity, and EJ talked about like what would be his dominant thing, like what would be the thing that he could be great at. I thought it could be being able to create separation, get open, and then get yards after the catch. And I thought he could do that at a high level. He's not really doing that at a high level. And again, he should be, because he's like the focal point of the Vanderbilt in terms of weapons. He's the focal point of the Vanderbilt offense. So it should be, Eli Stowers should be like putting up these big, massive numbers, and he's just not. I think he's disappointed. Like, he had 2 drops in the Alabama game, and before this season, he had 2 in his whole career. I've noticed too, he's playing a lot more inline than he did last season, and that is, I'm sure that's because he did put on the weight that Max was talking about, but it has not helped him. I don't think he's a better blocker than he was last year. But yeah, he's now lost the one thing that I thought he was great at, which was the quickness and the fluidity and being able to move well after the catch. And like, he still does it. Like, he's not bad at that now, but he's definitely not as good as I thought he was in the summer. So now I'm kind of like, I'm more in alignment with you guys where I'm like, okay, now what do you have to hang your hat on? Also, we brought it up with Michael Trigg. Eli Stowers is a graduate senior. He's going to be another old rookie in the NFL. So it's just, there's a lot of things now that are against him, and there's less positives now than I thought there was about 2.5 months ago. So yeah, I mean, like, yeah, mid day 3, if that is probably what we're talking about at this point, unless he just like picks it back up again. But I don't see that really happening. It kind of feels like Vanderbilt offense in general is a little not quite as explosive as it was last year. But yeah, I tried to be an Eli Stowers guy, and that didn't really work out for me. So I'm sorry.
It takes a big person, Anthony, to admit that you changed your mind.
Well, I've been a big person for a long time, but more in the literal sense.
I would say, like, if we go back to someone like last year, like Aronde Gadsden coming off the injured season, he added like 10 to 15 pounds. I thought that worked fairly well for him at Syracuse because he was able to. But he was much more of a ball dominant guy in the air. Like, he had some level of physicality and some like natural receiver skills at the catch point. Mm-hmm. I think that adding that weight didn't really bring down his caliber of play at the collegiate level. Mm-hmm. Whereas with Stowers, he was never a catch point guy. He was always like, get the ball to him on like a scheme touch thing, and then let him go create. And so I think that's like the difference between these two players who have both kind of taken similar paths in their final seasons, but have come up with very different outcomes.
Okay, so the last player is Max Klare, and I know he's not 5'11", 200. So does anybody have confirmed height and weight on Max Klare immediately accessible?
Confirmed, no, but he's definitely a good 6'4", like 242, 245 to 245, that area. He's like Dalton Schultz, basically.
So apparently I forgot to type that in. But Max, why don't you go ahead and kick off Max Klare from Ohio State?
Oh, I really love him. Like, I think he was out of summer scouting. He and Delp were in contention for tight end 1. And like, if you put a gun to my head right now, obviously it's before testing and the end of the season and everything. So you don't, not on the clock here, but if you put a gun to my head right now and ask me to name my tight end 1 in this class, it would be Klare. Just because, like, I think from a receiving point of view, like, so much, he's the most translatable, I think, both in like it and again, like the F tight end is not necessarily really a thing in terms of like an every down role, but like he can do some of that flex stuff. Like, if you get into 12 personnel, you can access a decent amount of your 11 personnel menu. Like, he can work on, like, he reminds me so much of TJ Hawkinson. I mean, even with the frame, right? Like, see, TJ Hawkinson 6'5", like 245, which is a little bit thinner, but not thin. Klare's like 6'4", 242, so it's sort of a similar proportion. They're both really good route runners. They're fluid. They got quick feet. They sink in and out of breaks really well. And Klare is actually quite a nice inline blocker. If you watch he was like, I was shocked by that when I actually turned it on because of the way everybody's talking about him before I started watching him. Like, he's out there against Penn State and Ohio State and their big DNs, and he's their number 1 inline guy at Purdue that last year. He was making every difficult block. He's sealing the front side of counter, head up, 1-on-1, basing in duo, turning out and reaching an inside or an outside zone. All that, like, legit stuff that I want to look for. And his technique is really good, and he's got great energy and great effort. And of course, the receiving was so good, right? Like, he's, again, fluid, quick, refined route runner, especially for his age, and big enough. The tough thing about Ohio State is that, like, And this is why it's weird to transfer there as a tight end. Like, I get it. And if you don't really care about this an insane amount, I totally get it because it's a great system. It's a great program. You're probably going to win a national title. But like it's going to be, it's a little tricky to get the ball there. Like you've got like Julio Jr. and Nico Collins Jr. on the outside getting all the targets because nobody can cover them, which like, duh. And you also have another tight end on the roster who's a sick blocker. And so if you're Ryan Day at this point, you're like, yeah, Klare is a very good blocker. But like, I mean, like the tight end position is not really going to get the ball anyway. So like, we'll get him out there when we in stuff we think we can get him the ball. It's a weird place to go. It's a weird place to go for a tight end. I think they should. I think he should get like a 90% snap share. I know Kaczmarek is a great blocker, but Klare is good enough that sacrificing his receiving and his insane matchup, rule breaking at that wide tight end spot without sacrificing viability, like legitimate solid viability in the run game, I think it's something they're missing. And they're not missing much because they're insane, clearly the best team in the country. But like, I think there's like, they could be even harder to line up against if they just based it 11 personnel with Klare out there. And when they got into 12 personnel, you can put him in the slot, especially in college, and work him on all that stuff. And he might be their best slot receiver because Tate and Smith are going to be two of the receivers. And who's their third guy, right? Is it Ennis? Is it him? I think it should be him a lot. I think he should be on the field all the time. I think he should be getting targeted a little bit more. But the lack of volume is not impacting how I view him as a player at all. It's just, I mean, come on, like if I were a quarterback, I would just, sit there and throw the ball 4 times to Jeremiah Smith until the refs kick me off the field. But, I love him. And I haven't changed my mind on him. I think he's like a borderline first-round player.
So, Anthony, where are you on Max Klare, the tight end from Ohio State?
Yeah, so I've come around on Max Klare. I liked him over the summer, and then the beginning of the year was not great. He wasn't productive at all. I don't think it was all on him necessarily. I do think there's not enough mouths to feed for a true freshman quarterback. But he's come around. It seems like he's sort of now found his place in the offense. Max touched on it. He is incredibly smooth as a route runner. I think he's probably the best, just like pure route running tight end in this class. I also think he does a really good job at like selling his routes, head faking defenders, using that to create separation. I think he's probably the best in this class at that. He can win with speed. He can win with athleticism. He can be a threat after the catch as well. If you go back to like his Purdue tape too, like there were multiple times where he won as a receiver, but didn't get the credit because of bad quarterback play at Purdue. So, he's been consistently productive, even if the stat sheet didn't always show it. And I should say, consistently being a factor on offense. I'm not in love with him as a blocker yet. He had some bad reps in that Illinois game, missing defenders in space, not sustaining blocks. I think there is still work to be done in that regard. I don't know what because I wrote down 236 as his weight. I do think putting on a couple pounds probably would help him to just get a little bit stronger, and don't pull an Eli Stowers and like lose your athleticism. But I think he can do that. He has the frame for it. I also feel like there's times where I don't see his catch radius being as wide as I would want it to be for a guy who does have good size. But I do think, again, like he's gotten better as the season's gone on and as he's kind of been more implemented in the offense. I do agree with Max that like I think he needs to be like, dominating snaps and like being on the field consistently. We'll see, listen, you have Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate, who are both first round wide receivers. I understand why he's not going to eat targets. But I like him as a player. I don't quite have him like top 50, probably more like a top 75 guy for me right now. But I think he's a pretty clean tight end prospect in terms of just like he's going to play in the NFL. He's going to be in the NFL for a long time, and he has that tight end one upside.
And Sam, where are you on Max Klare from Ohio State?
Yeah, I think I'm scouting more of the traits and the production for him this year. And tight end is always such a weird role in college anyways in terms of production, but especially when you throw into an offense that has 2 first-round caliber wide receivers, it kind of changes the math a little bit. I've been top 100 grade on him pretty consistently. I think there might be more of a ceiling on him, or more like not necessarily an elite ceiling on him per se. Like I think so. You're not looking at a guy who's going to be for me like a top 50 pick, I would think. But at the same time, I felt the same thing about Sam Laporta, and Sam Laporta ended up being pretty darn good. So I think there's some value here, and I know like Klare to me, I'm more with Anthony. I don't think he's a great blocker, but I think he gives a lot of effort, and those guys do tend to develop in the NFL. Like we've seen Laporta get better. We've seen Kincaid take some marginal steps as a blocker. So like these guys who, and I think he's better right now as a blocker than Kincaid was, obviously. So I think there's some like ability to develop that aspect of your game once you get to the NFL. There's weight like programs. There's more technique built into it. There's more time spent on that technique. So I think there's definitely room for him to grow there in the NFL. But like the ability for him to like decelerate on like NFL and like receiver caliber routes, like curls and digs, and be able to create separation on top of the stem that way. Be able to like run like passable whip routes at his size as a tight end. Like that's just something you don't get from a lot of guys in college or in the NFL. So I think there's a lot to work with from his athletic trait standpoint. And you're really talking about the route running and the fluidity. It's all fantastic. He's got the ability to work across like the safety's face at the peak of the stem and kind of cut into space. This is stuff that a lot of guys get to do, from an athletic standpoint. So I think you're dealing with a lot of that. I don't think he's very twitchy or loose after the catch. I think he doesn't really have the place or anything to consistently break tackles. So it's more of kind of like a catch it, get what you can space, and then he's going to get down when he gets first contact most of the times. Solid player. I think he can be a starter by the end of his rookie contract. I don't think he's necessarily a day one guy as a starter, but I think you'll get someone that's getting a pretty good amount of snaps by the end of that rookie deal.
And EJ, where are you on Max Klare right now?
Yeah, I like him as a receiver. Like everybody said, he's an excellent route runner. I watched him versus Illinois, and I watched him versus Minnesota. Against Illinois, he's running a simple bang 8 route, right? Bang 8 route is pretty much just like a slant, but on a little bit deeper down the field. So he's running a bang 8 against a defensive back with inside leverage. So what the bang 8 is, you want to cut inside just like a slant. So the defensive back has a proper leverage against that route already. So what he does is he stems his route to the outside and makes the defensive back react to him outside, and then he crosses face. He has that fluidity and that quickness to cross face and then get back inside, and the ball's right there waiting for him. He has the route nuance, like against off-man coverage, and they run a little option routes, choice routes. He'll take that little speed out, and he'll get that separation against the defensive back. So I like him as a route runner. He's a more fluid athlete than explosive. But against my issues with Max Klare become when the physical parts of the game, like again, also against Illinois, they had like a third down and long, and he's running a seam route. He's running a crossing route, and the defensive back is getting real physical with him. I mean, it could have been a flag because the defensive back had hands on him, and quarterback threw it directly to Max Klare. He's right there, but the defensive back is draped all over you. I still need you to catch that. That's a smaller defensive back. You have the longer wingspan. Go moss that guy. Take that ball away from him. He let physicality bother him, and I want him to play through physicality. As a blocker, he gives you effort as a blocker. It's simply that those two other guys at Ohio State, they're better blockers than he is. What they do right now is when they really wanted to run physical out of 12 or in goal line situations, they took Max Klare off the field. It was 89 and 85 as the two tight ends. So, and it's not a fact that it's not an indictment on him as a blocker. It's just that that's not where his strong suit lies at. His strong suit lies in the receiving game, and the other two guys, they're just much more physical players. So he can develop as a blocker to where, like I said about Michael Trigg, to where he can be honest, he can keep an offense honest, so he can stay on the field, and they still will assume that he can be a capable blocker. But it's just not going to be to the high level unless he improves his play strength. I think a little bit play strength and hand placement, I would say. But he is pretty much he's a very, very skilled receiver. That's where he's going to make his money at. And I like the fact that he can be man coverage, albeit off man coverage. I think he's going to have to work a little bit more through the press man coverage, but off man coverage, he can manipulate defenders, and he still can find the holes in zones and sit down in zones. So I like the receiving aspect of his game. It's just a little bit of the physical aspects that he needs to round out, and I think proper coaching will get him up to that level. So I mean, I have a draftable grade on Max Klare, and I would say probably he could sneak into day 2. Late day 2. If not, then early day 3.
Okay, so that finishes the tight ends for today. What just happened? There we go. Took a minute for the screen to adjust. So what do you guys think so far of the tight end class? We have 5 more guys to go next week, but are we feeling the same way we did in the summer, Anthony, or do you think tight ends are emerging and it's a better class?
I mean, I do think tight ends are emerging. I think, we haven't talked about him yet. He'll be next week, but like Kenyon Sadiq, I think is establishing himself as a first round caliber tight end, not a wide receiver. We talked about like Max Klare, Michael Trigg, the other guys like Justin Jolly. There are guys that I think can be top 100 picks. But overall, it's not, like last year we had Tyler Warren and Colson Loveland, who both went top 15. I don't even know if, Sadiq is probably up there, but you're not going to get another tight end even close to that. Overall, I think the class is a lot of just like guys that could be contributors, like could be good tight end 2s. A lot of guys like that. But other than Sadiq, I don't think any of them are really going to be like high end starting tight end 1s in the NFL.
Sam, what's your thought on the tight end class?
I think you could get 3 or 4 starters out of this class, it's solid, but it's nothing special in comparison to a couple of past years we've had. The way I would put it right now is on my big board, there are a couple tight ends in the round 4 range that would need help to get into the top 100. And when I say that, I mean it would need guys to go back to school essentially to get into that top 100 range, which I think could really define how we view part of this class in terms of how it compares to everything else. But it is a pretty much like a 3 or 4 guy class for me, as far as this guy could be a starter by year 2 or year 3. And after that, you're kind of just drafting backups who are going to play more role-specific roles in your offense.
EJ, how about you? What are your thoughts on the tight end class?
I think it's a solid class. I don't think it has the star power outside of Kenyon Sadiq, but there are guys that are going to work their way into your 12 personnel package. I'm not sure if they're anybody's immediate starter. I think other than Kenyon Sadiq, you're going to have guys that's going to get into a training camp and work their way up the depth chart. But there are guys with talent, and there are guys that are going to have specified roles, whether that's just blockers or just receivers. Like teams that just are looking for a blocking tight end, they're gonna draft. There are guys there for that, and that can block at a high level. So I think it's a lot of specified roles, not a lot of complete tight ends in this class, but I think there's it's pretty deep. I think I think a lot of guys are just going to go just for different type of roles, but not. I don't see a whole lot of star power outside the top guy.
And Max, what's your opinion of the tight end class as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I think there are a lot of guys that are going to end up underdrafted, and I think it's going to be tough to justify taking a Max Klare in the first round with the production he's probably going to end up with. But had he done what he did at Purdue last year in the box score, good, and then tested well, that guy's probably pushing end of round one. Like, he was the most sought after tight end of the transfer portal and that doesn't mean that much for the draft, but by a large margin because of what he was doing on tape. And he's got the frame, and I think that and again, he's young, and I think the inline blocking for where it is now is way ahead of most guys. It's sort of, watching him sort of felt like, I didn't watch Sam Laporta when he was a prospect, so I wasn't really like doing this yet as much, but like I went back and watched him this offseason as a college player, and like the disconnect between the way everybody was talking about him as a blocker and what I was looking at was like huge. And I feel the same way about Klare when I watched him this summer. So I think, like, you know, a guy like that has first round DNA as a player. But it's going to be tough to justify with the production. And I just don't think his name's going to have the kind of buzz that it would need to carry him into the first round, even though he could end up being a guy that we look back on and say, oh, how did that guy not go in the first round? I mean, those happen all the time. Laporta was one of them. And I think the same way about Dae'Quan Wright, just because of the system and the volume production, even though he's second in the country in tight end receiving, which is kind of crazy given the way that offense is set up. Delp too. Delp's another guy that like has the DNA of a guy that could go like in the first round. I think if he played for like Michigan, for instance, or something as their starter, he could be a guy that puts up some serious receiving and then pushes his way into like, you know, mid-second round, maybe even late first with a freaky combine, which I think could be in store. So I think he's going to get underdrafted. I think who else is going to get underdrafted? Nobody's talking about Eli Raritan right now from Notre Dame.
Yes, absolutely.
That's next week.
Oh, he's next week. Okay, well, we'll take that.
Yeah, so next week is Eli Raritan, Brett Norfleet, Justin Jolly, DJ Rogers, and Kenyon Sadiq.
Okay, all right. So I'll table that. But like, nobody in the people aren't talking about him. Like I think enough.
It's because they're not listening to the podcast.
Well, true.
That would be the solution. You listen to the podcast, everybody will talk about it.
That would solve a lot of problems. And like, it's just, I think it's a class. I think it's obviously not last year. I think it's a standard, decent to good tight end class that has the chance to age extremely well and be a place where teams get incredible value because of weird stock stuff with these guys, like Klare with the production, like, and Delp with the production, like I just said. So there's a serious opportunity for value here for teams. I will say though, I'll save this for next week. I think it's solid with a chance to be great considering the value guys can get, like relatively great, at least to draft position.
Yep. Well, why don't we pause for podcaster identification? So Sam, you want to let everybody know about your Substack and the great draft content that you make?
Yes, you can follow me on Substack at Sports Talk Sam Teets to get all my content. I'm down to like 3 to 5 times a week. I'm posting stuff at this point. We got draft reports, we got weekly stock ups, talking about some of the best players from the past weekend in college football. We're doing like 1 or 2 of those a week at this point, so going through a good number of names there, trying to mix in some new names as well. That's all free content. We just hit over 1,000 subscribers this past week, so that's pretty big numbers. We've been working on it for a number of years, so I'm proud to get over that. I also do some work for Chiefs Wire. I'm their lead draft analyst there as well. And so all free content. You can go follow me at Sam_Teets33 on Twitter and get access to all of that and find all the links there.
Anthony.
Yep. You can always find me on X at Anthony_Russo97. I also have a Substack. We're heading to that 1,000 number. We're at a whopping 34 right now. I post draft stuff there too. I just did a 3-round mock I put out yesterday. That has been widely beloved and nobody's had any problems with it. Unbelievable. And I post clips on X, my thoughts and analysis on players and who the Jets should take first overall, because that's what we're going to do. And you can find all my good draft stuff there.
So I want to give a shout out to your mock. So obviously I read it, liked who Buffalo took. So Jerry Ostrowski is doing his offensive line prep for Tuesday night's podcast. He's like, I really like the Oregon center. And I said, yeah, and one of the draft professors just had him go round 1 to Buffalo.
Hell yeah, I did.
So I let Jerry know about your Substack when he and I were texting. So I just thought I would share that with you.
Thank you. I'm not letting one not great game dissuade me from loving Poncho. Poncho Lululu, hell of a player.
Yep. Max, you want to let everybody know about your Substack and the other draft content that you make?
Yeah, you can find me on Substack at Remember the Tight Ends. It's the tight end exclusive Substack that I launched in December. Just trying to churn out stuff there this year. Juggling a couple other things as well, but just keeping track of the NFL season, keeping track of the guys in college as well. I just released my midseason Mackey Award. It's just top 5 with some honorable mentions as well. I talked about the draft in that a little bit, just because I think it's so natural. A lot of these guys, like so many of them, are the prime, tight end prospects, obviously. So that's the latest. It's obviously mostly NFL during the season, but I touched on college a couple weeks ago with Dae'Quan Wright as well. So that's where you can find a lot of my stuff. I also do some work for Bengals Talk SI. Try to get like weekly film reviews up there, just of what the Bengals are up to, which is a lot less fun right now than it was for when I thought Joe Burrow was going to be the quarterback. But there's still a lot going on. It's still really interesting. So yeah, there for sure. And you can always follow me on Twitter, just at my handle at MaxToscano1. Everything that I do ends up there, so it's a good place to find it all.
EJ.
Pretty much you can find me every Thursday at 9:00 on the Mrs. Irrelevant podcast. Also, at the end of the draft season, I'll be doing position breakdowns for the Rogue Analytics Draft Guys. You can find me doing defensive backs there, and also on Twitter or X, you can find me doing pretty much film breakdowns, scheme breakdowns for the NFL draft, player analysis, and all film-based opinions. So don't argue with me, argue with the film. And as always, I will never ever use the word generational.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I am surrounded by 4 generational podcasters. So if you are watching, and there's a lot of you watching right now, please give these 4 gentlemen a follow. Anthony Russo, Sam Teets, Max Toscano, EJ Holt. Find them on Twitter, give them a follow. We cannot create content like this without these 4 gentlemen taking the time out to break down a specific position group. So you can see a lot of the people here. So EJ, you can see Thursdays and Fridays. He'll be doing the tight end episode. Next week, he's breaking down the running back class. You can catch Anthony Fridays and Saturdays, and on Saturdays, he'll be breaking down the offensive line class. You can catch Sam on the channel on Fridays doing tight ends. We're going to take a 1-week break and then breaking down linebackers. So if you want more podcast content, you're on the right channel. Just give these gentlemen a follow and hit that subscribe on YouTube so you know when we are going live, which is at 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. Eastern every day, 10 a.m. Sunday morning, 10 a.m. Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Sunday morning. We're here every day with daily draft content. So For the 100 podcasters at the Draft Professor, for Sam Teets, Anthony Russo, Max Toscano, EJ Holt, and myself at the Draft Professor, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on a podcast again in about 1 hour.